more sense of this. I have the Chief Executive Officer of Cowrie Assets Limited, Mr. Justin Chukwu. He joins me now via Skype from Lagos, and from our Abuja studios, I have an economist, Professor Ken Ife. Let me start with Prof. Prof, we discussed last week about Nigeria's GDP, comparing our rebasing figures to what we had in South Africa, and now crude oil prices is showing us something else, that we have to revisit our benchmark. How does this come to you, Prof?
I haven't seen this guy, and they're coming to me now. They haven't called you, because the guy is
Okay, I'll get back to you, Prof. Let me ask Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson, look at what we have today. It's already below benchmark, and we know what we've been grappling with. There's coronavirus. There are other issues, global issues affecting the global economy. What do you expect? Where do you see Nigeria standing in all of this?
Thank you, Tolu. I think we're in a very precarious situation. The outlook it doesn't look very, very positive. And of course, if you look at two major things that have happened, the coronavirus led to a decline in demand. So we suffered, the oil industry, oil market suffered a demand shock. So what's the matter? Only yesterday, Russia and Saudi Arabia has entered into a price war that has created a supply shock in the market. And for the first time in the history of the oil market, we're witnessing both demand shock and supply shock, where you are seeing demand has decreased as a result of a different factor, which is as a result of the coronavirus infection in China that has actually affected most countries in the world. And then added to that, that coronavirus issue created shortage of demand, which automatically created oversupply in the market. But now with the price that has just evolved, we are seeing Saudi Arabia threatening to pump as much as 12 million barrels into the market. They are currently doing 9.7 million barrels per day. With the 12 million barrels, if they succeed in doing that, they will add an additional 2.3 million barrels into the market. The market has already oversupplied. And Russia is also threatening to also increase their supply. So you may find out that if these threats are implemented, then the oversupply in the market will get to such point that crude price will actually trade around the $20 range. And that's those are the concerns. That automatically messes up the assumptions which underpin the 2020 budget. Of course, the 2020 budget, the government has projected a revenue of about 8.4 trillion naira. And of that 8.4 trillion naira, 2.6 trillion naira is supposed to come from oil, crude oil sales. If the oil is trading at about $20 to $25 per barrel, certainly we're not going to see anything close to that budget projection. And the greatest concern is that our non-discretionary expense for this year is about 7.3 trillion naira. So we must generate revenues of up to 7.3 trillion. Otherwise, we have to borrow to pay salary. The salary projections in 2020 budget is about 3 trillion naira. Debt service about 2.4 trillion naira. Then you had overhead of about 1.7 trillion naira, coming out about 7.3 trillion naira, which are non-discretionary, that must be incurred for the government to continue to operate. So we are actually in a difficult situation as it stands today.
Okay, let me ask Prof the same question. Prof, at that meeting in Vienna, I was thinking that all parties were just going to resolve and, keep the market afloat and let it flow. But unfortunately, Russia is not ready to agree with resolutions at that meeting. Now, the effect on Nigeria is what I really want you to talk about. Where do you see Nigeria stand in all of this? Already, regulators or our government agencies are already saying we need to review and check out these figures, talking about budget benchmark for crude oil.
Well, we don't know what Saudi Arabia is playing at. If they are actually wanting to get out of OPEC, we don't know. But the fact of the matter is that they are a low-cost oil producer. They have around $10. I think they may have figured out how to reduce it to about $8. And then pushing all of us to the fence because Nigeria is around $30. And I think we need to critically review this production costs because there is the scope to bring it down, at least if to 2025. But anyway, put that by the side. I don't think there is any need to panic or to think that that is the end of the world. Today, Nigeria is stronger today than we were in 2015. Our macroeconomic fundamentals are more robust today than 2015. Even though our foreign reserve has come down to about 36 point something billion, remember that it came down to 26 billion. Today we have a plan. In 2016 we didn't have a plan. And we have, if you look at the growth that we posted, 2.55% growth in last quarter of 2009, 92% of that growth came from non-oil. So there's no need to spread panic in the land because it is going to hurt our economy more. We are going to take it as it comes. But government is doing the right thing, which is to get a committee to look at this critically and also acting with speed to review the budget and do it sector by sector because sectors are all exposed to this issue differently. For example, I look at in more detail at the impact on our aviation industry. And it's going to be heavily impacted on, even though we haven't had any death in our country of coronavirus, but the impact is all over the place. You're now screaming about oil, but so is the capital market worried. The capital market, global capital market has lost 9 trillion, 3 trillion last week, 3.6 trillion the week before, and we haven't seen the end yet. Yesterday was by 10% drop on average across all known indices. So the worst is still to come, but there's no need to spread fear in our land. We are better prepared than this, than what we saw in 2015, 2016. And all sectors, as I said, are differently exposed. Wow. Aviation, I have a lot more detail to talk about.
Okay, Prof, I'm going to come back with a serious confidence in what Prof is saying. Now, Mr. Johnson Chukwu, Prof is saying Nigeria's economy is more stable than what we had in 2015, citing macroeconomic indices as looking good at this time. Yeah, we saw the GDP figures and trying to see a little bit of growth, but that inclusive growth which you talk about, we're yet to achieve that. How does this come to you, Mr. Johnson Chukwu?
Well, I beg to differ from Prof's position, and I can support my own position with some of the macroeconomic data that was available at that time. In 2015, our total national debt was about 12.6 trillion naira. Today, we're about 26.2 trillion naira. So our capacity to borrow has been weakened by the amount of debt we amassed. Today, if you look at 2020 budget, the provision for debt service is 2.45 trillion naira. Total revenue of the federal government at the end of the third quarter of this year, by the end of September this year, was only 2.9 trillion naira, which is just marginally above the debt service provision we have made for 2020. Remember, the debt profile has continued to increase. In terms of foreign reserve, we had a stronger foreign reserve in 2015, entering 2016, when the economy went into recession. Secondly, we also actually had a stronger growth. 2015 GDP growth rate was 2.79%. 2019 was just barely 2.2%. So in terms of economy that was steaming, we had a stronger growing economy before we entered into a recession. Then we had buffers, a form of foreign reserve, a form of excess crude. We currently don't have those buffers that we can use to stabilize our situation in the event that this crash in oil price succeeds. Third factor is that the central bank was in a stronger financial position to intervene in the economy than they are today. Remember that in 2016, the federal government provided funding to state governments to enable them to pay salaries, and the central government also took over the loans and passed them on to DMO, which means they were funded by the central bank. The DMO had to finance the loans of the state to free them off from the obligations that were bogging them down. Today, the central bank is not in a position to do that. So if oil price remains low, there has to be some adjustment somewhere, and I believe the only window that is left for us at this point is to adjust the exchange rate. Otherwise, the state government will not be able to pay salaries. neither will the federal government be able to meet its obligation. And this mentioned to you earlier, Tolu, that the provision in this year for the current expenditure, salaries and wages, debt service and overhead is 7.3 trillion naira. Total receipts at the end of September last year was only 2.9 trillion naira.
Okay.
So if oil price remains at $30, $40, how are we going to meet this non-discretionary expenses? I don't think we are in a stronger position than we were in 2016.
Okay, let me ask, Prof. Now, Prof. Looking at where our reserves stand, because that actually is like how to measure the health of any economy, and the economic recovery and growth plan, it's not really conforming. I want you to speak to this document, and how well do you see us implementing it, even at this time with all of these challenges?
Now, look, there is absolutely no question that revenue crisis is something that we'll face. There's no question about that. When you look at all the indices around the debt service to government revenue and all of that, and violations, we know we have that crisis. But that is because our government revenue to GDP is 6%. The average in Africa is 18%. The VAT is 7.5%. The average is 15%. We have headroom to increase government revenue. You saw what happened in border closure. Suddenly, customs are earning 5.5 to 7 billion extra every day. It shows you the level of hemorrhage on our revenue. But let me look at the debt position. We're not in any debt crisis. If you look at the debt to GDP ratio in 2015, it's just about the same as the debt to GDP ratio today. If you add the $22.7 billion, you look at the ratio, not the absolute figure, because our GDP is also moving. It's a moving target. So it's the ratio that you use to compare. And of course, you still come back on the ability to service the debt. Then secondly, if you look at at the same time, 2016, about 3 or 4 of the $4.6 billion every month requested for import, about 3.2 billion of that is for food-related items. Today, that has come down to $590 million as at end of 2018, $590 million. How could you have done that? One is because the CBN had to go to demand management to blacklist about 41 items, then vigorously invested in the 10 presidential value chains. You've seen what is going on with rice in the north. We have changed that narrative, absolutely. But what we are saying that we need to do more. Government need to do more, and especially engage subnational entities like the states and federal and the local government. Get them in, because this is economy. Economy is on the concurrent list. So get them in to become stronger and much more involved in the production.
All right,
and of course processing.
The Economist Live from Abuja, Professor Kenny Faye. It's always nice talking to you. And of course, Chief Executive Officer, Cowrie Assets Limited, Mr. Johnson Chukwu, live here in Lagos, Lagos Island from his office. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on Business Time.